Alright, so welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is the POLY D from Behringer. Now this is not a review, it's a deep dive guide about this synth. Now everything on this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. So if you like this guide, please like and subscribe, and of course if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can. Everything is on the description. So, of course, it kind of makes sense that we start with the oscillators, and we're gonna cover the whole synth on different sections. First, the oscillators, then, of course, we're gonna go to the envelopes and the filters. Then, we're gonna talk about how the modes work, the Autodamp, then, of course, the modulations. Then we will talk about how make the sequencer work, and, of course, the chorus and the distortion. So, we will cover everything that this can do. Okay, so first, of course, we need to talk about the thing that makes the sound. Now, you need to take a look right here. Everything right here, the cutoff is up. This one is down. This one is down, 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 and then down, down, and all the way up on the sustain. And it should be sounding like that. We have only one oscillator on. So you essentially have 4 different oscillators. The last one, it's a little bit different. We're going to talk about this one in a second. And of course, right here, you can manage the volume of all the oscillators. And right here, you turn the oscillator on or off. If all of them are off, of course, you are going to get no sound. Now, of course, we're going to go to the first one. So you get 2 main things with the first oscillator, which are the different waveforms that you can play. And of course, you can go all the way down. You get a triangle, and you can see it right there on the oscilloscope. Then you have a trisaw, just a little bit more, harmonics. Then the triangle. Then, of course, we get the saw. It's just a little bit louder, right? And then, of course, we have a square. And then, of course, we have the narrow pulse and one more level of that narrow pulse, right? So pretty simple waveforms. I'm pretty sure you know all of this, but again, this is a guide, so I need to go through all the different aspects because maybe you're learning and you want to see and learn how everything works, I just need to cover everything. If you just want to learn how the sequencer works, because it is a little bit confusing and you have a lot of functions, you can skip to that part. I'm not gonna get upset. So of course, right here you can change your waveform. You can, of course, manage your volumes, turn it off and turn it on, and you have, of course, you can go to low, which is LFO, right, land. Then you have 32s, you have 16s, you go to 8, 4, and 2. Pretty simple and pretty standard. Now then, of course, you have 3 more oscillators, so you have 4 in total. And of course, you're gonna need to turn it on. And the main difference with this 2 and the first one, is that on this one you can fine tune. So if I go right here, right now, the first one and the second one are on, so I can detune the second oscillator. Now, in terms of the range and the different waveforms that you can create, this is completely the same. The only difference is that you can just, fine tune it. Now then I'm gonna turn it off and just go all the way down. The third oscillator is exactly the same the one you have on the oscillator number 2. You just can play it, detune it, maybe go to low frequencies or to high frequencies, it doesn't matter, completely up to you. And of course, you're going to get different sounds, depends on what you're doing. So for now, I'm going to just turn it off. And then you have the oscillator number 4. Now, the oscillator number 4 is a little bit more powerful than the other ones. The main difference first is that you have a different waveform. Notice on the second waveform, on the 2 and the 3 and the 1, you have a trisaw. But on the 4th, you don't have a trisaw. You have an inverted saw. And the only difference, of course, you can do your fine tuning right here. The other difference is that this one can be disconnected from the keyboard. Now, when you disconnect this from the keyboard, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to turn everything off and I'm going to leave the 4th one on, right? And this again will sound just like a normal oscillator. So if we go to 8 or 4 or 2, it's just going to do the trick, even if we go to 32s. But the difference is that when we go to low, notice that we get some clicks. So this is working now, or it's going, of course, at the LFO rates. It's going very, very slow. And the fact that you can disconnect it from the keyboard, it means that if you play low keys, it will not go faster and it will not go slower. And let me show you maybe going to 16. So I'm standing on a range and the oscillator control is all the way up. So this means this is on. So if I play a low key, we get a low tone. If I play a high key, we get a high, tone. Now this one, what it does, it says, okay, whatever key you play, you go and play it. Now, if I turn it off, now the keyboard, it's not managing this anymore. So if I play a low key, it's just going to play a constant frequency. And if I play a high key, it's going to be the same constant frequency. And this is because you can use this as an LFO and go up in speed or go down in speed. Right now, we have oscillator rates, which is super fast. But later, we can put it on low, go up in speed or go down in speed of the LFO, and later we can use it as a modulator to run modulations. That's the main difference, and that's why the oscillator 4 it's very important on the Poly D. In this case, I'm just gonna go to oscillator rates and just leave it right there. And for now, I'm just gonna turn it off and go back to the first one. So there you go. These are the oscillators, and they are pretty simple. You have your most common waveforms, and the fourth one is very powerful. And later, we're going to use it, of course, with this section you have right here. Maybe you're wondering, how does this work? Well, this belongs to the modulation section. We are going to be discussing or talking about this one later. Now, if we go to this section, we need to talk about this just a little bit because we don't have a lot. We already know the volume for each oscillator. We know that we can turn it off or turn it back on. And then we have this external in that we will talk about later. Now, then at the bottom, between the third and the fourth, you have the noise. Oh, of course, you can turn everything off and just go up in the noise, and you're going to be getting some noise. Now, of course, you can turn it off if you wish, or leave it on and play it with an oscillator and manage the volumes. Now, you have pink noise or you have white noise. Completely up to you, depending on, whatever it is that you want to use. Right, for now, I'm going to go down and turn it all the way off. So we know the oscillators now, pretty simple. We need to talk about the other thing that we have right here, which are the filters and the filter and the loudness contour. Okay, so let's talk about the filters before we go to here. And right here in the loudness contour, everything is down, and the sustain, it's all the way up. So of course with the filters, and remember that this is a full guide, so maybe you are learning and this is going to be of course precious information, but maybe you do have some experience, so all this is maybe going to be a little bit boring for you. You can just move forward to the next section. Now, of course, with the filter, since this is a subtracted synth, we are going to be cutting frequencies, or maybe the frequencies we don't want. So this is the case for the synthesizer. Right here, you can cut off your frequencies with this cutoff frequency knob. Now, you who do have a filter mode is going to be on low. So this means that when you play a key, and I'm going to go and play a key, you have the right there at the bottom, you have the spectrum, so you can see everything I'm playing. When I go down, it's going to be cutting high frequencies. So this is how it works. It's a low pass cutoff. Now, what happens if you go to the other side? So on the other side, you have the opposite. It's a high pass. So instead of cutting low frequencies, you're going to be, high frequencies, you're going to be cutting low frequencies. And we can see it right there. Now, the cutting is a little bit different. And we can see it right there on the spectrum. Now, it depends on what you're going to do, you want to cut the lows or cut the highs. So your emphasis is going to be your resonance control. If I play something and cut a little bit of the, the highs, of course, we have a slope right there. So this emphasis is going to be a bump on that breakpoint. If I go up, notice that we start to get a peak at that point. Well, that's the breakpoint. And if I move the cutoff, of course, you're going to be hearing that famous growl. Now, if you go all the way up, it's going to start getting this tone, of course. Now, this is a ladder filter. This is the type of filter that this uses. So it means that how this works, when you go up in emphasis, you're going to lose a little bit of bass. So if I play a low key, a very low key in this case, I'm going to go up on the emphasis and notice that the low frequencies are going down. And this is how it works. Maybe you're thinking there's something wrong with mine. No, it's how a ladder filter works. It's just normal. Now the main point is that we are adding a peak right there. Right? That's what I want to show you right now. Right, so that's the cutoff and that's the emphasis. Right, so I play something and we can see that, bump right there with the resonance. Right, so instead of going to this one and talk about this one, I want to talk about these two buttons that you have right here. So this is the keyboard control. Now, the first button, it means that this is 1/3 of an octave. The second one is going to be 2/3 of an octave. Now, if both are off, it means that you have nothing. And if both are on, it means that everything is false. You have 100% of the effect. Now, the thing is that what is the effect? So the keyboard control, what it means is that it will adjust the cutoff frequency depending on which key you're playing. So let me just give you an example. I'm going to play a low key, right? And we can see that we have that bump right there on the, and actually I can make it more obvious. We have it right there. I'm going to be playing and going high on the frequencies. So notice that that peak is not moving. It's not moving at all. It stays right there even though I'm playing high keys and going to higher frequencies. The peak never changes. It stays put. So this means that the frequency, this cutoff, it's cutting the high frequencies and it's not moving depending on which key I'm playing. So sometimes that's fine. It doesn't matter. It's what you want. But sometimes what will happen is that the low frequencies, you will be able to hear them because you're cutting them. You're not cutting them. But if I go to higher frequencies, we are not going to be able to hear them as well because we are cutting a lot. So the keyboard control will listen to whatever key we are playing and it will adjust the cutoff frequency up or down depending on which key we are playing. The first one is 1/3, the second one is 2/3, and both on is full. So we go to less, more, and full if we play them all. So I'm going to give you one example. I'm going to turn the first one on and you need to do the same. Just take a look at the peak. As I go up, notice that the peak is moving now. So now the filter is being adjusted to whatever key I'm playing. So when I go to higher or lower keys, it's adjusting the keyboard or the cutoff frequencies in this case. So now the higher keys are just a little bit more bright because it's adjusting the cutoff frequencies. So if we go to the other one, it's going to be the same, but a bit more aggressive. Notice that we can really hear the higher frequencies now. Notice that the peak really changed places. Right, so what happens if we have both on? So it's going to be full effect. Notice it's much more aggressive, going all the way up on higher keys and going all the way down on lower keys. So that's the main difference, and this matters. Depends on what you're doing, which patch or what sound you're trying to create. Will the cutoff frequency react to higher keys or lower keys, and how it will react? And this is very important because right now we are going to be talking about the envelopes and the amount of contour, which is going to be the modulation that we will do with this one. And if both are on, this is going to be a little bit too aggressive if you're doing an aggressive modulation with the amount of contour. But that's fine. We're gonna see it right now. For now, I'm just gonna turn them off and we're gonna talk about the amount of contour and the filter envelopes. Alright, so what is the point of the amount of contour and the envelopes? So when I play a key, I'm gonna play just whatever key, doesn't matter. Play this key. What I want to do, I want to kind of this knob, whenever I play it, I want to do this. I want to modulate it up and down when I play a key. So of course, when we do this, the envelope will decide how we move this and how we can automate this with whatever we have right here. So if at some point when I play the key, this starts here, goes up, then of course maybe it's going to sustain or maybe not, and then it needs to go back to the original position. So that's the main purpose of this envelope. Now, how much of this effect we want is going to be the amount of contour. If this is all the way down, it doesn't matter if we do something right here, it will not react to anything. But if I move it up, it will react. How much? Depending on how much we have right here. So for now, so we can show you, we can learn how this works. I'm going to go to 50%. And I'm going to go all the way down on the attack, all the way down on the decay, and all the way down on the release. Oh, sorry, sustain. So if you notice, the attack and the decay are time-based knobs or values. Notice that we have seconds. Now the sustain has a number from 0 to 10, and it's because this is how long it's going to take for this knob to go from here or from point A or the starting point up, and then how long the decay is going to be, how long it's going to take for this to go back to the original position, of course. And the sustain, it's maybe, do we want to sustain at some point in between and not go back to the original position? That's going to be the sustain. So let's just kind of show you this. We're going to do, again, 50%. So if I play a key, and I'm going to go all the way down, if I play a key, we can hear something, but of course we can see it on the spectrum that is super fast. There's something going on, but we cannot hear it. So what I want to do, I want to modulate this. So how long is going to be? Well, it's going to be the attack. If I go right here, it's going to take a certain amount of time, and it's very sharp. You know, it's very fast. It's like 700 milliseconds, maybe a little bit more. So what we do, we start from the original point, and I'm going to go all the way down on the cutoff. Starts down, and then goes up, and then it dies. If I go slower, of course, this is going to take a lot more time. Right, so when it's reaching this threshold or this time, it will just die. Now what happens if I want to, maybe go back, but I want to do it on a smooth way? Well, that's going to be the decay. How long it's going to take to go back and then die. So if I do a decay, something like that, maybe almost the same, it's going to go up slowly, and then it is going to go back and die. Right? Okay. So what happens if I don't want it to die? Because I'm still holding a key. So that's going to be the sustain. It's going to go up and down, and I don't want it to die. So the sustain is what do you want to do? Do you want to kind of keep the sustain, or to keep sustaining, or not having the full, the knob going to all the way down to nothing? So this is going to be a level control. Notice that now it's not dying. And of course, we have the sustain of the loudness control all the way up. We're going to talk about this in a minute. So of course, the sustain is a level. And notice that as I adjust it while I'm holding, it's just going to change values. Let me do something a little bit more cutoff. Notice it's changing. If I go up, it's going to change. So if you want to, of course, decide how long it's going to take for that modulation and how aggressive, well, this is going to be how aggressive. This is going to be how long it's going to take to go up, how long it's going to take to go down, and if we want to stay in somewhere in between. That's how the ADS works. And this is kind of a very basic explanation of how envelopes work. Now remember that if you go all the way up on the amount of contour, this is going to be a bit more aggressive. And then it's going to go down and sustain at some point. So you need to decide how much the amount of contour will affect the modulation on the cutoff frequency. If you do a very little, it's going to be maybe just, let me do something like that. Not great of effect, it's going to be a very mild effect. If you want to affect it more, you just do more. Now, remember we talked about the keyboard control. This will affect the cutoff frequency depending on which key you play on your synthesizer. Well, this plays a part right here because this one, it's moving the cutoff frequencies. So this one will make it brighter or not. So if I play now and I turn it off, notice it's just a little bit different. Now the position and the peak is just, on a different place. And it's because this one, it's, of course, influencing this. If I play both, notice it's much aggressive and the peak is right there at the top. If I turn it off, you can see the change right there. So for now, the keyboard control works along with the amount of contour and the cutoff frequency. It's really important when you're just designing a sound or just, making a sound. Maybe you don't want for this to be that bright, so you turn this off and it's a little bit darker. And if it's still too bright, you turn this off and it's just a little bit darker. It's completely up to you, of course. Right, so that's how the resonance works, the frequency, the keyword control, and how we can use the envelopes to modulate the cutoff frequency up and down, and we just decide how much of that effect we want with the amount of contour. Okay, so I'm gonna go all the way down on all the knobs we have right here, all the way up on the cutoff frequency, down on the emphasis, down on the amount of contour, and it doesn't matter because I'm not gonna do any modulation with the envelopes. Now remember that this is how the envelopes work. And right here, we have the loudness contour, and we have the same thing: attack, attack, decay, decay, sustain, sustain. So if you, again, you don't know how these envelopes works, how an envelope work, go to the filter section. We talked about that, how they work there. So on this one, we are going to be talking about what is this loudness contour. So this is the amp. So this will control the volume. This is the envelope controls the movement of the cutoff frequencies. So this one will control how, the sound will go out of your synthesizer. And of course, the envelope will work the same as this one. So if I play a key, we have that. And notice how it works. Make sure the decay is all the way down. I'm going to explain this in a second. I play a key, the sound plays, and as soon as I release it, it dies. That's how it's working. Of course, if we want some kind of a smoothing, of course, we will decide how much attack we want. And this is a time-based knob. So if I go to 50%, it's going to be a slow kind of an introduction. If I go up to maybe up to 5, it's going to be a slower introduction. Just slowly bringing the volume up. And if I go more, it's going to be super slow. And if I go all the way up, it's going to be really slow. Notice it takes a long time. Now, of course, at some point we want to go up. And I'm going to go all the way down in the sustain for now. So everything is down and the attack is at 50%. Let's say, right in between. If I play a key and I'm still holding, the volume goes up and then dies. Of course, I don't want this. I want for the sound to smoothly go down. So this is going to be the decay. How long is going to take for the sound to die or to go to 0. Now, I'm still holding a key. I'm not releasing it. So that's going to be the sustain. Where are we going to be waiting if we are holding? So it's going to go up and then we do less sustain. It goes slowly up. Then it's go down to the decay stage. And then, of course, we are sustaining a note. So it's just kind of a holding right there. So that's how the attack, decay, sustain, release. And it works the same way than this. Now, we have something extra. And for now, I'm just going to go all the way down on the attack, all the way down to the decay. And we have this decay option. So when I play a key, we are sustaining, right? And I release the key and the sound dies. So this means that there is no release stage. Now, usually when you see an attack, decay, sustain, release, an ADSR, the R means release. So release, it means what is going to happen when you release a key. So we don't have this. So, but you do. When this is turned on, it means that you don't have a release. When you play a key and you release it, it will instantly die. Now, when you turn this one on, you do have a release stage. Now, what is the value? The same value that you have on the decay. So right now, the decay is all the way down. If I play a key and I release it, it dies because the decay is all the way down. So if I go up, now it means that you have an attack, a decay with the same with this value, a sustain, and then a release stage with the same value than the one you have on the decay. So you can imagine that you have one more knob at this point called release, and the value is the same than the one you have on the decay. So now if I play a key and I release it, it slowly dies. If I turn it off, every time I play a key, it's just going to die right away, as soon as I release it. So that's the difference, that's what the decay does. Now, you don't have to go, all the way up there. You can just have some decay and, have a little bit of decay or of release and go all the way up. It's going to give you a very long release, almost like sustaining the notes. Right. Of course, if you want to kill the sound, it's just you go off and you just turn off pretty much the release. So right here on this side, you have your global tuning, of course. So you can go sharp or you can go flat pretty much, you know, pretty self-explanatory. Now, right here, you have the modes, and this is what we need to talk about, you know, the modes, and then we need to talk about the Autodamp that we have right here. So by default, the synth, it's mono, right? It's a monophonic synthesizer. So mono, it means that you can play one single key at the time. You cannot play one key and then play a different key, right? You just cannot, one key at the time. You cannot do two. Now then unison, it will do a different thing on the oscillators, and then poly means that you can play many keys at the same time, but they work on a different way. So make sure that all of them are in 16, all of them are on saw. I'm gonna go to a saw right there. This one is on, this one is on, everything is on, and all the way up. Now I'm gonna go down in volume just a little bit because it's gonna be a little bit loud. So, okay, so how does this work? Well, if I go to mono, what it happens, and you're going to see the lights right there indicating that, you know, we are getting that sound, you know, from this oscillator. I'm going to be playing a key, and we get a sound from all the oscillators at once. That's fine, that's mono. Now, when I play a new key, this one, the one I'm holding this, it's not playing, it gets disposed, because this is mono. It's going to dispose the previous one whenever you play a new key. That's how mono works. It's a monophonic synthesizer. So if I go to unison, this is going to be a little bit different. If you play a single key, the same thing is going to happen. It's still mono. I play a key, 4 oscillators at once. So what's the difference between this and mono? No difference. Now, of course, the difference is that whenever you play a new key, that new key will be allocated to 2 oscillators. Notice that we get something now different. We are getting this key, and we are getting this key. Now, if I release this one, notice the lights. So yeah, so what it does, when you play 2 keys, it will just allocate this to 2 oscillators, and this one to 2 different oscillators. So you can play 2 different keys and have 2 different oscillators playing that. That's why it's called unison. Now, what happens if you play 3 different keys? Well, that's just not gonna work. If I do C, if I do something like this, it's just not gonna work because, of course, you don't have a lot more oscillators. You don't have 6 oscillators, so you cannot do 2 oscillators per key. So this will be all oscillators, 1 key, divided on 2, and then we just have poly. So, of course, the 4th one, it's just not playing, it doesn't matter. And if I do this, of course, that's going to be assigned to the 4th oscillator. Maybe I'm going to need to tune the oscillators just a little bit more, but that's how the unison mode works. Right, so I'm gonna go to poly mode, make sure that we are all on saws, all the oscillators are on, volume all the way up, and I'm standing on 16, right? So the poly mode, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting part of the synthesizer, of course, because this is not a polyphonic instrument. It will play 1 oscillator per key. Now, all oscillators will use the same envelopes and filters. That's why I'm saying this is not a polyphonic instrument. Of course, there are a lot of, you can discuss if this is a polyphonic or not. In my opinion, it is not. It's a mono synth with extended capabilities, in my opinion. It's not a polyphonic instrument like you would get if you keep it on the same family. For example, the DeepMind 12 or the 6, where you have 6 or 12 different voices. And this means, of course, if you have 6 voices, it means that whatever you have right here on the panel, it will be kind of a replicated or multiplied by 6. And the envelopes, of course, will work a bit differently on each voice. In this case, you don't have voices. What you have is pretty much a single voice, which is a single, panel right here, and you have 4 oscillators. But what the poly will do, it will allocate or will let you play 4 different keys at the same time, and each key will go and be assigned to 1, 2, 3, or 4. That's how it works. That's why, not right now you see more of this part. So remember, we are on poly mode. Everything is on the same range, it's tuned, same waveform, same volume, same everything. So I'm going to go right here, make sure that all of this is just kind of a default, and I'm going to be playing a key. And of course, in poly mode, when you play a key, this is expecting for you to play many keys. So if I play a single key, it's just going to do oscillator number 1, and we can see it right there. If I play a second key, it will play the second oscillator, and if I play a third key, we are going to be getting a minor, right? If I do a major, we are going to be getting, it's a little bit too bright, let me do a little bit of cutoff, I'm going to go and do it around there. And of course, you're going to be able to even do a 7th chord. So you can play 4 at the same time. So when I release a key, of course, it will remove the assignment for that key. But notice that all the keys are not going away because I'm still holding. We get a 7th, I'm going to release it. Notice that we get no sound, and I'm holding one key and all oscillators are still playing. And when I release it, it dies. So that's why I'm telling you, all this, it's not a really polyphonic instrument. It's just, you know, an extended monophonic instrument. So when you make a chord, everything is going to go through the same loudness contour, the same envelopes that you have right here. So when you play it, it's going to fire and the envelope will re-trigger. So what happens if I play a key and I play a new key? Something like that. It works a little bit weird, right? Okay, so right now I'm going to go to decay all the way up, and I'm going to go to attack, and I'm going to go decay all the way, maybe 50%, 50%, 50%, and maybe not a lot of sustain. I'm going to do around 2. So if I play a key, notice that the volume goes up and then goes down. This is what we are saying, or what we are telling the synthesizer to do when we play a key. Now, if I play a new key, notice that the sound goes up, but this key is also going up, and it's because, again, we have a single envelope for the whole synth. So whenever you play a new key, the envelope will re-trigger. Any other envelope, you know, everything will pretty much re-trigger. So all the keys go up in volume because we are re-triggering them. So this pretty much it's how it works, right? So you can still, of course, do chords and have fun. And I actually use this a lot. Let me go something right there. You might do the chorus. It's gonna sound beautiful. You know, that sounds right. But you need to bear in mind that, of course, when you play chords, it's going to work a little bit different from your polyphonic instrument. If you have one, it's going to react differently. So you need to be kind of careful in what you play. Now, this kind of takes us, let me do a little bit more brightness. This kind of takes us to the Autodamp and the MultiTrigger. So I'm going to stay on poly mode, and the Autodamp right there, it's all the way off. Very first, we're going to talk about this. So I'm going to modify the envelopes that we have right here. I'm going to go to attack 50%, and again, decay 50%, and the sustain all the way up. So if the Autodamp is off, this means that whatever we are playing, pretty much, since we have a single envelope, is going to keep it playing. So I'm going to be playing a key, and I'm using the chorus because it sounds cool. I'm going to be playing a new key right here, and as soon as I play it, since the sustain is all the way up, is sustaining it. And if I play a new key, is sustaining that one. But the trick right here is that I'm holding this one never dies, but when I play a new key, sustaining that new key. What if we don't want this? Now this is the default behavior because remember we have a single envelope. So if I turn the Autodamp on, it means that whenever we play a key, that one will remain the same and will listen to whatever we do right here. But if we play a different key, it's going to work like a gate. It's just going to let it pass and kill it right away. So I'm going to play it, and notice it's not sustaining. So that's how the Autodamp works. That's what it is, pretty much. And it's very different. It depends on what you want to do. If you want to play fast, or maybe keep a low tone right there. If you want a lot more control on what you're doing right here, not sustain it, then the Autodamp, it's gonna do the trick. Now, if you want the other thing, this is going to be, of course, sustaining everything, especially if you have the decay on. That is how different it reacts with the decay off. And remember that everything is re-triggering again, so we hear that going down and up in volume. Because again, it's not a polyphonic instrument, it's a monophonic. We have one single envelope. Since the decay is super long, we, don't get the difference. We don't hear the difference. But that's why you would use the Autodamp. Now, does this work the same way on Unison? Of course, it's exactly the same. Right now, I'm going to go to the Autodamp. I'm going to be playing this. We have 1 key, 4 oscillators. 2 keys, 2 oscillators per key, right? And I release this key, and it's just keeps playing. And when I release it, everything dies. If I go to the Autodamp, I'm going to be playing 1 key. I'm going to be playing this, release it, and it dies. The other way, I'm going to go and turn it off. Right? So you need to be aware of what you want to play with the Autodamp. This is kind of important. If you're kind of playing fast or playing, melody parts and you don't want them to sustain, you want a little bit more control, then this maybe should be on. If you're playing chords, well, then this one should be off because, you want those chords to sustain because you're holding them. And just to give you one more example, I'm going to go to Autodamp on, right? I'm going to keep it on. So we are just killing after we play it. So I'm going to be playing just a major chord. What if I want to make a sus 4? I'm going to be doing this and this and this. Notice that we hear the change of when we are changing to these and this. Now, if the other one is off, the transition is going to be a little bit more smoother. Right? So very different. So we need to talk about the MultiTrigger. Now, all this is going to be related on what we are doing, how we are firing or triggering the envelopes. So it's kind of related to the poly, unison, and mono. For now, I'm going to go to mono just to show you what this is. And I'm going to be going right here, all the way down, all the way down. This one, I'm going to keep it up. And this one, you can keep them down or just maybe up. It just doesn't matter. It's completely up to you. And I'm going to do a little bit of cut of frequencies. I'm going to go all the way down on the attack, all the way maybe right here to 600. And the sustain is going to be around 4. So we are going to be getting something. We're going to be getting something like that. So by default, this unit, the synth, it's MultiTrigger. The mode, it's MultiTrigger. And by default, it's on. Of course, this MultiTrigger, every time that you play a key, it means that the envelope will trigger. And it kind of makes sense. So again, we are mono. Now I play a key, and notice it's sustaining. But when we sustain, of course, we don't sustain it all the way up. I'm going down after the decay. We kind of all talked about this. Now, if I play a new key, what do you think is going to happen? Notice what happens. I release this one, and this one triggers again because we are holding. So it doesn't matter, I'm holding this one. Every time I play a new key, it's going to trigger the envelope. That's why we get that rise and down in volume. So every time you play a key, it will trigger the envelopes. So this is the default behavior for this synth, and then, that's fine. This is how it works. Now, of course, we have a way of changing this. Now, you can connect this through your USB right here and download the Synth Thrive, which is some version for me right now, 2.5.7. And you have a lot of options right there. Let me just show you right here on the screen. You have some options for the whole synthesizer. You can use your sequencer right here or actually import and export your sequences. And of course, you can update if you want. But right here, you have the option for the MultiTrigger. And by default is on. So what is going to happen if we go to off? So if I go to off, this is going to be very differently. And you could think of this as legato on and legato off. So now I'm going to be playing a key. This goes up and then goes down to the sustain stage. And now I'm going to be playing new keys. What do you think is going to happen? I'm going to play it. Notice that we don't get the same thing. It's not going up in volume like it was doing before. And it's because now, if I'm holding a key, whatever new key I play will not trigger the envelope. We'll just play and we hear whatever new key on this point, whatever this is doing on the envelope. If I go even down, this one is going to go up and down. And now this one is going to be very soft because it's not firing this envelope again. If I make it the multi-trigger on again, it goes up and down. That is going to trigger it again. Trigger, trigger, trigger. Right, so the multi-trigger is very important. It, of course, depends on what you want to do. Now, the problem is that you need to access through the app, and that is a bad thing. You cannot access or change it from here, from on to off and off to on. But you do have a way, and this is actually how it works on the mock, according to what I read. So what you can do, you can turn the synth off and then turn it back on. And if you do a combination of keys, you're going to be turning it on or off when you turn the synth on. I know it sounds weird. We're going to do it right now, don't worry. So right now, if I play it, multi-trigger is on. So what I want to do, I want to turn it off. So if I do a D major, just like that, D major, and then turn it on, of course, when this is off, we are going to be turning it off. So we're going to try it right now. I'm going to turn the synth off, fully off. I'm going to do a D major. And in theory, we should be turning the multi-trigger off. It was on. Now it should be off after the check. All right, so I'm going to check it. I'm going to play a key. It goes down to the sustain. And now it's just not triggering. Of course, this has a velocity, and this is a little bit different. It adds kind of a something else because this is velocity responsive, so sensitive. But if I play normal, it's not triggering, right? Now, the other way, it's turning it back on, and that is D minor. So I'm going to turn it off, and we are going to do a D minor chord, and we're going to turn it on. And in theory, it should be on the multi-trigger now. If I play it, now whatever I do, if I play soft, right, it should be triggering. And it's doing that. So now you don't need to go to the application to change it. You can just, decide what you do. Now, if I turn this on and off, it will remember the setting of the multi-trigger. Okay, so let's dive into what we can do in terms of modulation. So you pretty much have two ways of doing modulation. You can modulate this, which is going to be the cutoff frequency. You're going to be modulating this up and down, depends on what you want to do. Or you can modulate the pitch, which is going to be, like going to the pitch bend, the pitch wheel, and just modulate it on a different way. Now, of course, how we are going to be doing this is going to be right here on the modulation mix. And not the glide, the modulation mix, and the options that you have right here. You have a rate, and notice that the action is more like here because we are going to really use it. So you essentially have four ways of doing modulation. You have the noise. You can modulate it with noise. You can do an LFO, so you can use an LFO. Or the other way, it's going to be the oscillator, and maybe you cannot see it right now. No, it says oscillator 4, and then filter EG. So we can use this filter to run a modulation or the oscillator number 4. So right now, we're going to focus on the LFO and the noise. So how can we focus on that? Well, this knob decides what you're going to be using pretty much. So if we want to focus on the noise and the LFO, I'm going to go all the way right here. Then we're going to see what happens if we go right there in between or we go the other way. But right now, I want to talk about the noise and the LFO. So then right here at the bottom, you have some other options. This means, of course, what are you going to be using? So you're going to be using an LFO, you're going to be using the noise, you're going to be using the filter or the oscillator number 4. Right now, we don't care about this one, we care about this. So in this case, I want to use the LFO. So I'm going to go to the LFO. Now, in terms of the LFO, you have a very simple LFO. And the LFO is right here at the bottom. You get a triangle or you get a square. And how fast do you go is going to be the rate that you have right here. Notice if I go faster, The light is going to indicate how fast you're going, and you can go super fast or you can go super slow. Pretty simple. All right, so now make sure this one is on. Now the cutoff frequency is going to be right there in the, at the 50%, let's say, and we are all the way on the LFO and LFO. So it means that the LFO should be kicking in and modulating this something like that, right? Now if I play a key, this is not happening. And it's because, of course, we need to decide how much modulation we want to do on this one, just like we do with the amount of contour. And we have no knob that decides the depth. So this is going to be this knob, the mod wheel. And as I go up, notice that we are getting an LFO. And I'm using the square LFO. You can go to the triangle LFO. And now, of course, it's going to be a more smooth transition. And you can see it right there on the frequency spectrum. Let's go up and down with the cutoff frequency. Now, if I go a little bit more aggressive, it's just going to be a bit more aggressive. So this is going to decide how much you're going to be doing. Going to be doing less, nothing, all the way in. Now, of course, the rate will decide how fast you go on the LFO. You can go faster, or you can go slower. And I mean really slow. Now, of course, the square, how it works is a more on and off kind of a vibe. Right? On and off. Right. So, when you use an LFO or any other modulations, whenever you enable this, it's going to modulate the cutoff frequency, nothing else. So what's going to happen with this? If I turn this one off and I turn this one on, this one, whatever we do right here, whatever we did, is going to modulate the pitch. So if I play a key, remember, we are not going to do any modulation if we don't provide the depth. So if I provide a little bit of depth, notice we can hear, and it's pretty obvious now. If I go right there at the top, and I do a triangle, notice that the triangle is modulating the pitch up and down, so we can see it on the spectrum doing this. So this is just modulating pitch up and down, pretty simple. So this is what the LFO will do. It will give us a triangle or a pulse, kind of a way, or a square. This will decide how much modulation we're going to be applying, the speed or rate, and what we want to do right here. Now, on the other side, notice that you have a noise. So instead of using the LFO, you can use noise as a modulation source. And this is going to be a completely different thing. Now, this one still is going to decide how much modulation you will do. And we will do the same example. I'm going to go to the filter. And remember, we are at kind of a 50%-ish, right about there. And I play something. And now we're all still all the way on noise. And now we have the noise. Then we're going to talk about this mod source. If I play a key and go up, notice that we get something. And if I go all the way in, we can hear it. So what is this? So this is the noise. The noise that we have right here is being used as a modulator to modulate the cutoff frequency. So if I turn it off and we go maybe up on this one, we can really hear it. And if I change noise, from pink to white, we can hear the difference. And this is off. Right. So essentially we modulate whatever it is that we are doing, the filter, with a more kind of a inconsistent, or let's say a more random kind of a, modulation, very fast, of course, modulation, which is going to be the noise. If I turn this one on and this one off and this one on, now we are doing the same thing, but we are doing it with pitch. If I do wide, of course, this one doesn't matter. This is just for the LFO. Sorry for that. This one, it doesn't work right now. It's just the LFO. Right, so that is the noise and the LFO. You can do LFO modulation or noise modulation. All right, so now we have the other side. Let me just adjust the microphone. We have the other side, which is going to be the oscillator number 4 and the filter EG. So I'm going to go this and go all the way to the other side. And I'm going to go down on the depth. So if with this one we can modulate with noise and LFO, with this one we can do the same, but with the oscillator 4 or the filter EG. So if I First, we're going to start with the filter EG because you know, it's easy. So if you think about this, what we are doing with the cutoff frequency, we are modulating with the amount of contour in this envelope. We are doing that. We are just modulating the cutoff frequency up and down with this envelope. What do you think we are doing with the filter EG? We are doing pretty much the same. So I'm going to be going all the way down on the amount of contour just to show you that it's pretty much the same. I'm going to do decay around, I don't know, 50 or 600 just to give it a number, and the attack 600. And I'm going to do sustain to 3 on the EG, right? And I'm going to turn this one on. Remember, we are all the way on the filter EG and this one is enabled. And right now, everything is down. So I'm going to be playing something and I'm going to go up on the depth. Notice that we can hear it. Maybe I'm going to be turning this one off, of course. Notice it goes brighter. So we are using this envelope to modulate this cutoff frequency. So notice the amount of contour is all the way down and the cutoff is being modulated by whatever we do on the keys with the mod. If I just go down, it's dark because there's no modulation. So you can still maybe use a combination of this. Let me just go down. Maybe you can go and, you know, use a combination of both. And when you play a key, this is going to be doing the modulation. But then when you go up on this one, you're going to have a little bit more depending on what you have right here. Notice it's just goes down because we are not using it, but if I go up, now we have a combination of this and whatever we are doing on the mod. Now the other way, if I turn this off and I turn this back on, we are going to be doing the same thing with this envelope. And for now, I'm just going to go all the way down with the amount of contour. I'm going to keep the same thing we have right here, 600, 600, and maybe 300. Now we're going to modulate the pitch and we do it the same way. I'm going to be playing a key, and I'm going to be going up, you know, go all the way. And that's what we do. We use this envelope to modulate the pitch according to whatever we are doing on the envelope. Now notice that if we have the sustain at some value, the pitch will go up and down, but it will stay at some point, which is not the key we are playing. If I go sustain all the way up, it's going to go up and down to whatever pitch I play. Now, of course, you can go into some in-betweens. And as I go up, it's going to be a lot more aggressive. So that's what the filter EG will do. It will use the filter envelope to run a modulation on the pitch or on the cutoff frequencies, right? So then you have the magical oscillator number 4. And this one, it's just really great. Make sure you are on this side. I'm going to go to OSC number 4. So now we can use the LFO as a modulator, and that sounds great. But the LFO, it's pretty limited. So what we can do, if we are not using this LFO as a sound source, we can still use it as a modulator, but, hear it. But in this case, I'm going to keep it off and volume all the way down. It's off. We are not going to be able to hear it. This, whatever we are doing right here, is going to be used as a modulation source. And you can get a million amount of sounds. I want to say million, a lot of sounds. So right now, we are using oscillator number 4. And this is all the way on the oscillator number 4. I'm going to be playing a key, and we are not doing anything because there's no depth. And right now, both are disabled. So I'm going to be going to the filter modulation. Everything is at 50% right here. So I'm going to be going up, and that's how it sounds, right from the scratch. Can you hear that? It's just kind of moving in some fashion. So this is the oscillator number 4. Now, when I play this and I change it to different frequencies, it's going to react differently. Now, we are modulating this with the oscillator rate, we can hear this. If I go to other, it's going to be modulated in different ways. Now, what if we want to use it as an LFO? We can go to low right here. Now, if I go all the way to low, this is going to be playing oscillator LFO rates. So if I play a key, now we get, an LFO. What LFO? We are doing a ramp. So whatever you select right here is the shape that you're doing. We can do a square, we can do a triangle, a ramp down, or a shorter pulse. It's a much more complete LFO than the one we have right here. Now, right here, how can you do to go faster? This one is going to make it go faster, and this one is going to make it go slower. So for now, I'm just going to go to 50%. Now, I'm going to be playing something, and here that the modulation, it's kind of slow. And as I go up, notice that the modulation, it's faster every time I play a key. So why is going faster? Now remember that this oscillator 4, it's listening to the keyboard. So if we play higher keys, the frequency is going to be higher. So the LFO is going to go faster and faster if we play higher keys. And if we play low keys, it's going to go slower. Makes sense. Now remember, we can disconnect it. So whenever we disconnect it, the keyboard will always play a constant frequency. So if I play low, it's going to go at that speed. And if I play a higher key, it's going to be the same speed. So now we have a much better LFO. I wouldn't say better, just maybe controllable. You can go fast or you can go slow. Right? Pretty simple. You just choose whatever it is that you want to do and then use it. Now remember that, of course, we can go and modulate the pitch. Right, so pretty simple, right? And usable. Now, of course, we are using this on the lows, but we can use it at oscillator rate. So if I turn all of this off, this oscillator is a working oscillator. Of course, I'm going to need to go up in volume. And I maybe turn it on, so I'm connecting it to the keyboard. So this is a working oscillator. So we can still, and notice how different it sounds. So we can still use the oscillator and do the modulation on both the frequency, the pitch, and this. Now we don't hear a movement like wow, 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 or going down or up because this is super fast. And when it's super fast, we don't perceive the difference on the LFO. We don't feel like it's moving. It's just constant. So we're going to be getting different textures and different tones, different timbres. If I go down, it sounds very different. So we are doing a little bit of frequency modulation. If I go right here, it sounds very, very different. Same thing if you're if you're going to be changing it. If I go faster, right, of course you can go into some in-betweens if you wanted to. Right. So that's pretty much how you can run modulations on this synth. Now maybe you're wondering, I'm going to go all the way to low and disconnect it, right? So I'm going to keep it off. I'm going to turn it off. And now what I want to do, maybe I want to keep that modulation and I want to make it slower, something like that. And I'm going to be doing it on the filter modulation, so it's not that annoying. Right, I want to do this. But maybe I also want to do an LFO. Now remember, this modulation is a mix. So if you go to LFO, for example, right here, you can choose a blend between the LFO, the built-in LFO, and whatever is that you're doing on the other side. So now if I play it, we get a combination of the triangle at this speed and whatever is that we are doing right here. If I make it a little bit more obvious, I'm going to be going to that and I'm making it faster. So notice that we get the super fast LFO, but at the same time we get the wow, wow, and this belongs to this one. And if I go faster, you're going to be able to hear this. So what we do right here is a combination of both, and you just need to decide which one you want more. The LFO or the other modulation, the filter or the oscillator 4. Right. So that's how the modulation works on this device. Now, of course, you need to do a lot of experimentation because, you can create a million amounts of sounds with this. even though it's very limited, and it seems like we cannot do a lot, you can get great sounds with this. Now, on top of that, what this gives you, it's an extra, I want to say an extra, is an external modulation source. And this is what you get right here. Notice it says mod source. So maybe it's just too small right here, but it says mod source. So on the back panel right here, at the back right here, on this part, you have an input that calls mod source. So this means that maybe if you have a different synth where you can export an LFO or whatever modulation, you patch it right there. And whenever you go right here, it's going to replace noise as a modulation source, and it will use whatever you are connecting it at the back panel. All right, so I'm gonna maybe go right here and just keep the oscillator 1, no modulation, right? So what you get is the glide. I feel like I don't need to explain this at this point because it's very simple. So the glide, what it will do, it will just glide from one note to the next one. So if I play a key and I play a new key, it should be gliding, but it's not because you need to turn it on. This is the glide button. You need to turn it on. If it's off, it will not do anything. So if I play a key and then I play a new key, it will glide from that note to the next one. Now, of course, I'm maybe gonna go to 6 just to hear it. And I'm gonna go maybe right there. Notice it's gliding. So it's just gonna kind of glide or slide to the next note. Pretty simple and self-explanatory, and this is something that you get on pretty much all the synthesizers at this point. Right, so that's the glide. I'm gonna go all the way down. Okay, so we are on the other side of the synth. And the synth is kind of a big. So that's why I'm just keep rotating the camera so I can, focus on what I want to show you. And what I want to show you right now is the X volume in. So if I play a key and I turn this one on and go all the way up on this, knob, I'm going to be playing a key and nothing happens. Now, maybe, just maybe, you own a Model D, and on the Model D, it's kind of a pre-wired for you by default. So when you go up on the external volume in, it's just going to be, cranking up. It's going to add an overload and give you some saturation, some distortion. In the case of this one, you don't have it pre-wired. That's why I'm going up and I'm getting pretty much nothing. So what you can do, you can connect right here at the back whatever you want, or in this case, maybe the same synth, and give, an overload, and you're going to be getting saturation. Now, one way of doing this is going maybe from one of the outs if you wanted to, or maybe going out from the external phones. So this is, of course, the headphones, but you can go out from here. So I'm going to be connecting a cable, and right there at the back panel, right here, you have the connection for the external volume in. All right, so now it's connected, and it's a very thick cable. So, okay, so the main point of this is that you can connect something there at the back, right here where this cable is, right there, right here. And it could be anything. It just could be any other sound source. It could be a different synthesizer, and this will go, of course, through all of this and then go out. That's the idea. And one of the, most widely known tricks is that you can go from the output of your synthesizer, and for now I'm just turning the course on because it's just going to make it a little bit weird. And this one will go out right here, go back in because it's your same synthesizer, the same sound. And you can overload it and get a really saturated kind of a sound. So if I play something and I turn it on, of course, right now we get nothing, but as soon as I go up, we're going to be starting to overload. And of course, I need to do something on the phones. And we're going to be starting overloading this, and we're going to be getting, you guessed it, saturation. We're going to just get a lot, distortion. If you go all the way up, it's just going to, it's going to get crazy and it's going to destroy your sound. But you need to make sure that whatever it is that you do right here just kind of makes sense. If I go all the way down, up on the phones, we can control it a little bit better from here. again, that's the trick. Just to get a little bit more saturation from your synth. If I turn it off, this is how it sounds. If I turn it on, it's completely different, right? So this is one trick. Of course, you can connect whatever you want back there and just go through, the signal path. So the chorus 1 is pretty simple. Now make sure that this one is on. If it's off, of course, you're not going to be able to hear anything. And it gives you that chorus sound, which is beautiful. If I turn it off, it's just not the same, right? It's just a beautiful chorus. Now, of course, then you get the second chorus, which is, a little bit more aggressive, and we can really tell the difference. And if we do both, we can do both at the same time. We're going to be hearing that modulation that we get on the sides. So it's more like a vibrato. It's not a vibrato, of course, but this is what you get when you turn both in. And it's actually super, super cool. Now, pretty simple. I feel like you didn't come here to learn the chorus. And then you have the, the distortion. And distortion, it's something that a lot of people are kind of a hate on this synthesizer. But I don't mind it, having a distortion right here is something really useful. Some people are complaining that maybe a delay would be a little bit more useful. Maybe. I have tons of delays, so I don't really care about that. Having one more distortion, it's fine by me. So the distortion, it's going to be a distortion. So when you distort, of course, the level is going to go down. So you need to adjust your levels. You can do a mild distortion or just, do a lot more distortion. The tone is going to make it brighter or darker, like just any other distortion pedal. Now, it depends on what you're doing. And for now, I'm just going to go all the way down this. Depends on what you're doing. You're going to really crush it or not. Sounds very different. In this case, I am crushing it. If I turn it off, very different. If I do something mild, it's a little bit less. Right, so very simple distortion. You get your tone, your distortion, amount of distortion, and of course the level out like any other giving, pedal. Right, so let's talk about the sequencer. All the action is going to be here, and I have an external keyboard, so, because right now I'm on this side of the screen right here, so it's a little bit hard to reach the keys, but I'm still going to show you the keys right there at the bottom, so you can see what I'm playing. So you have two main ways to work with the sequencer, and you have the keyboard and you have the step. Now, if you own a Crave, the sequencer, it's very similar, but you have some differences. Now, the main difference right here between keyboard and step, it's after you record the sequence, how you're going to see them right here and how you can enter to edit them and so on and so on and so on. If you want to change between keyboard and step mode, you could just hold shift and then you go to step, or you go to keyboard. So how can you start with a clear sequence? Now, this is pretty simple. You need to go to shift and hold it, then reset and then pattern at the same time. And I'm going to do it. It's a little bit hard because I'm in a funny position. You press all the three keys at the same time, and this will just reset whatever you had right here, whatever sequence, and it will give you a default sequence. And again, this is how it sounds. This is how a default sequence sounds. All right. Right, so how can we record a sequence? Now, this is actually pretty simple. I'm going to stay on the keyboard and I'm going to be doing rec. And whenever you do rec, it's going to be listening to whatever you want to do. And then I'm going to be playing something. I'm going to do 1, 3, 5, 7 minor. And notice that it's recording whatever I'm doing. I'm going to do it twice. And that's it. So now if I get out of rec and I play it, it's just going to play the sequence. It's that simple. Now, right here when you're in keyboard mode, these arrows, they do something. If I do this, or actually the other way, is going to reverse the sequence. So it's going to start from the end and then go to the beginning. And the other way, it's just going to start, from the beginning and go to the end. So this is what you get. So I'm going to go and erase everything, and I'm going to record the same thing. And it's going to be a 1, 3, 5, 7 minor, and I'm going to go to shift and I'm going to go to the step mode. So I'm going to do play, and of course we have the same thing, so nothing changes. Now the forwards and the backwards are going to work a little bit different. They don't kind of invert whatever is that we are doing. It's not reversing the sequence. What this do will offset the beginning or the ending, it will just offset the steps. So if I do 1 and I press it once, I'm going to stop it and I'm going to play it again. And notice it starts, the first one, it's the last key, which is the 7th I played. So that's what it does. It's just going to offset the steps. So if I do it one more time, it starts from a different place. And if I do it one more time, notice it begins from a different place. And if I do it one more time, then we have, the same thing we recorded. So this one, what they will do on step mode, they will offset the beginning or the ending of course, the steps or the sequence, which is offset in step. And on the other one, it will reverse it or play it backwards, forwards or backwards. That's pretty much the difference. Right, so let's go deeper into recording steps. I'm going to start from a default kind of a pattern, right? Remember, that's the way we do it. And I'm going to play it, and of course, that's what we get. Now, I'm going to be doing all of this, and we are going to be storing on different banks and patterns. So we're going to be doing a lot of that. If you already have sequences that you don't want to delete, my recommendation is for you to go to the app and save the patterns on your PC. Don't make me responsible for effing this up, right? From deleting your patterns. All right, so let's again record the pattern. We are on a default, and I want to do pretty much the same. And I'm going to stay on keyboard for now, and much later we're going to go to step. So I'm going to press rec, and I'm going to do 1, 3, 5, 7. That's what I want, and I'm going to do 1, 3, 5, 7. So we have an 8-step sequence. So the first thing that you need to notice is that this one has 3 different functions. The first one is going to be making it faster or making it slower. Pretty simple, right? Right. Now, some functions, some buttons right here, they have a white background, and this means that they are secondary functions. So this one has not just a tempo, it can do the swing. So if I do shift and hold shift and move the swing, notice that the lights are a little bit different. So you have 8 levels of swing. If you go all the way up, it's going to go to do full swing. And of course, you're going to get this vibe. And if I go all the way down, or maybe to 4 is half, And if I go all the way down, it's no swing. Now, when you change this, a little time after, it's going to change your speed. So you need to kind of adjust the tempo to whatever you had before, of course. All right. So notice that we have 8 steps. I recorded 8 steps. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And here, this one is blinking. So whenever you have a step that it's kind of a blinking like this means that you are either on edit mode or this is the end of the sequence. And in this case, this one is blinking because this is the end of the sequence. We have one pattern with 8 steps, and the last is the number 8. Right. Now, you can store 32 steps on a single pattern. I'm going to kind of show you this. I'm going to start on a default patch. Remember how this sounds. And I'm going to record 32 steps. And I'm going to do something easy. I'm going to play wide keys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we have the 8. And then I'm going to be maybe going to a different octave just to make it a little bit more fun. And then go back. Maybe not go back. I'm going to go higher. Right, so I recorded 32 steps. If I play this, and maybe go faster, we get them all. So again, you can record 32 steps on a pattern. Now, how do you know where you are? So right here, notice that these lights are blinking, and right here is showing you the progression of, where you're going. So right there, you have 4 pages. So page 1, page 2, page 3, and then page 4. Now, of course, since you can record 8 per page, you're going to be, of course, doing 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to be 32 steps. So this is the way you know on which page of each 8 steps you are. So it's 8, 16, 24, 32, end of the steps, and back. Now, sometimes you will like maybe to check or to stay at, maybe one page or the other one, maybe page 1 or page 4. So right here you have the page. Whenever this is enabled, it's gonna kind of stop you or leave you stuck on that page. It's gonna, right now you're stopped on the page number 3. How can you change pages? Well, if you do right there and you go back, it's just not gonna do it. So you go page, it's gonna change it. So now we are on the last page, which is the page number 4, and we have the step number 8, which is blinking, which is the end of the sequence. And if you press page again, it's going to go to the 1, and the 2, and the 3, and the 4. So now it's kind of not touring us automatically to all the different pages. We are kind of choosing on which page we want to be. And this is, of course, something good for editing purposes, because maybe you want to edit something on the page number 4, so you can go to that page, do your editing, and then get out of the page mode. How can you get out of the page mode? You just do shift, page, and you're going to be going back to the default mode. Right. So I'm going to be going to this, and we are going to be starting from a default patch. Right. So I'm going to do a record, and I'll do the 1, 3, 5, 7. Right, so I'm going to play it, and we have our 1, 3, 5, 7, and it's minor. Now, what this does automatically is that if you play a different key, it will transpose whatever you did right here. So now if I play a lower key, a lower C, it's going to transpose it there. If I play something low, it's transposing. And if I play to some other key, if I play whatever, it's just, doing it and transposing whatever we are doing. And it's something super cool. Right. Pretty simple. Let me stop. So this is how you record the pattern. You just, of course, start always from a default patch, just like, of course, that. You have nothing. You do a rec. You record whatever you want, and then you just play it, right? And if you want, you can transpose it. It's super, super easy. Now, before we can start talking about saving or just changing notes or using some of the other functions right here, you need to understand how the storing works, because this can store a lot of patterns. Of course, you can do 32 steps on each pattern, but you can do a lot of patterns, and you have also banks. So first we need to understand how the storing works before we can move forward. And once you understand all of that, everything else is going to be super simple. So how the sequencer works is that you have 8 different banks, and on each bank you can store up to 8 different patterns of 32 steps long, divided on 4 different pages, remember? So the problem is that how do we know on which bank we are, or which pattern we are, or how many pages do we have? And that's the kind of the big problem. Once you understand how to navigate this, everything is just going to be a little bit easier. So for now, I'm just going to go and make sure I'm on the right place. I'm going to show you in a minute, and I'm going to start with the default patch, and we're going to kind of do something. All right, so I'm going to be doing some recording, and I'm going to do chromatically, right? I'm going to record the different pages or the steps. Right, then we have 1, and I'm just going to, kind of play until we have no more room. It doesn't matter. This is just to, for show. So if I play this, we have that sequence, and we can see that this is blinking. And it's kind of touring us through the 4 different pages. So this means that we have 32 steps, and we have 4 different pages. That's fine. We kind of know this. Now this, whatever we are doing with this sequence, it means that we are working on a pattern. How do we check on which pattern we are? Notice that it says pattern right there. So whenever you hold it, you press and hold, is going to show you a steady light. So this means you are working on the pattern number 1. Now with the arrows, you can go to the 8 different patterns you have on each bank. And this leads us to the next question. How do you check on which bank you are? So you do Shift, hold Shift, and then you go to Pattern and Bank, and it's going to show you an orange or yellowish light. This means that you are on the bank. So we have a sequence, 4 pages, 32 steps long. We are working on pattern number 1 on the bank number 1. That's how you kind of check where you are. Okay, so now I need you to pay attention because you can easily lose your pattern. Maybe you really did a lot of work creating the pattern, and just by doing something silly, you're going to lose it. So I'm going to show you how you can lose it. I'm going to be playing, and let's say that this is the most beautiful sequence that I ever created. I love it. But I want to create a new sequence, right? So if I keep playing, maybe I'm going to be going to a different pattern because I know that this is the pattern 1 and I'm going to do something similar or maybe something else on the pattern number 2, right? Just pretend. So I'm going to go to the pattern number 2 and I know that the pattern number 2, we have the default kind of a pattern that we get from factory. So we can start working with the new pattern. Later, I want to go back to the pattern we created. So I know that that lives on the pattern number 1. So if I go back, we don't have it anymore. So whenever you create a sequence, it doesn't matter you're on pattern number 1 or 7 or 8 of the bank number 7. It doesn't matter. When you record the sequence, it's going to be stored in the memory, but it's a kind of a temporal memory, right? You're just working, again, in memory. You didn't commit it to store. It's just there. So whenever you change patterns or you change bank, it's going to erase it so you can, keep working with the sequencer. You never really saved it. You need to physically go and save your pattern, and you need to specify on which pattern and on which bank you want to save it. If not, you are going to lose it. So maybe you're thinking, okay, what a shit. I need to physically go and manually just, say where I want to put it. Well, not really. And it's actually a good idea to have this because let's say that you have a pattern, right? And you go to that pattern that you really like and you go right there, you reinitialize, you create whatever pattern you want, and then it's going to be erasing the previous pattern that you had there. So then you have the other problem, right? You need to really be aware of where you are. And you are going to be erasing every time that you create something, you're going to be erasing what you had previously. So that, again, gives you a different problem. So in this case, you kind of make sure that whatever you want to keep, you really go right here and save it. And, you kind of make the decision to store it on a different pattern and different bank. Right, so we are right now, and that is that now we know how to navigate this. That's the pattern, that the sequence. We are on pattern number 1 on the bank number 1, and we kind of know this. All right. So I want to do some recording. I'm going to do something simple. Right. So that's my sequence. It doesn't matter. I'm going to be going a little bit lower. So that's my sequence. And I love this sequence. It's the best sequence I've ever created. I want to commit it to store. How can we do it? So the way to do this is by going to Shift and going to Play. And you need to press both at the same time and hold them for 2 seconds. Now, when you do it, in this case, it's just, maybe let's do it again because I'm in a funny angle right here. So I'm going to be doing both at the same time. And when you hold it, at some point, it's going to kind of start blinking. So this means that it's waiting for you to make a decision on where to store whatever pattern you had. So right here, when you're in save mode, it's telling you, dude, I'm going to save it on the pattern number 1. What happens if you want to change it? Well, then you go to pattern and you change it. But in this case, I'm just going to leave it. But if you want to change it, going right here to the pattern is going to take you to the bank. Notice it's yellow or orange, and yellow and orange means bank. So that's not the way you can do it. When you're on storing mode or save mode, you're already on the pattern. You're kind of ready to select which pattern you want to select. So just with the arrows, you're going to be going from 1 to 7 or 8 in this case, and select your pattern. So I'm going to be storing it on the pattern number 1. And if you want to change the bank, you just go hold it and you select your bank. In this case, I'm going to be doing pattern number 1 of bank number 1. When you're ready and you're sure that you want to store it right there, what do you need to do? Well, pretty simple. You go to Shift, hold it, and do Rec. And it's going to store it right there. So if I play it, we hear the amazing sequence. And what happens now if I go to a different pattern? I go to pattern number 2. And of course, on the pattern number 2, we have the default one. But if I go back, we have our sequence. We are not losing it because we committed to storage or to store. Right, so that's the way you do it. What if you reinitialize by mistake, right? That might happen. So I'm going to be going right here and I'm going to reinitialize. And remember, we are on the pattern number 1. We are on the bank number 1. So we just kind of reinitialized the sequence that we stored. So how can you recover the one you had before? So pretty easily, you just go out and you go back in. That's one way. And then you just get it back because it was never erased. So another way to do this, if we go to reset and we go back to a default, the other way to kind of recover the bank without going out and to a different pattern and then going back to the one we had before, what we can do to recall it is going to pattern bank and then going to reset. And then if I play it, we get it back. That's a different way of doing this. Pretty much the same, of course. All right, so let's do a practice one. We already have that one there. I want you to do this with me right at home. I'm going to reset from, to go to initial patch. And I'm going to be recording something else. Right, I'm going to go there. And that's my amazing sequence. It doesn't matter. Right. So I want to, of course, store this. So, of course, I'm going to be going to Shift and this and hold it for 2 seconds. And it's going to start blinking, asking me on which pattern do you want to save it. Do I want to go to pattern number 1? Yeah, well, that's fine. I could go there, but it will erase the other sequence I had. So I'm going to be selecting, 5. That's fine. And then if you want to select the bank, I'm going to be storing this on bank number 8. Right? So pattern number 5 of bank number 8. Are we sure? Yeah. Shift, Rec, done. If I play this, that's the pattern. Now, in this case, of course, remember, we are on a different pattern. If I go back and then go back in, we have the one we had from before. If I change it to pattern number 5, we have that one. Now remember, we store it on a different bank. So in this case, I'm going to need to go to the bank number 8, I guess. And now we have it. We have the pattern number 5 of bank number 8. So that's how you navigate all of this. Right. And I'm going to do one more. And you can actually go to that place where you're going to be storing it and do it right there. So I'm going to go to the number 2 on the bank number 1, right? So on the pattern number 1, we have the first sequence we created. And then on the pattern number 2, I'm going to be recording something else. It doesn't matter. Right, I'm going to be doing that. That's my sequence. Pretty simple. I'm going to, of course, commit it to store. Hold it. It's going to start blinking. It's going to ask you, where do you want to store it? The pattern number 2, it's fine. And of course, we are going to be storing it on bank number 1. Okay, so I'm going to be storing it there. Shift and then Rec, and it's done. And of course, if I go to the pattern number 2, let me just play it. We kind of have it, right? And we are on pattern number 2. Now what happens if I go and toggle to the other one? At the end of the sequence, it's going to change it to the other one, and you can just change sequences on the fly while, doing this. Right, so now that we know how to navigate all of this, we are going to be talking about the other things that we can do, which is accents, rests, the ties, and all of that, and editing the pattern, of course. So right now, I'm standing on pattern number 1 of bank number 1, and I'm going to be doing some resetting, right? And I'm going to play it, and that's what we have. So right here, you have an option that says accent and an option that says rests. So you can do this after you recorded your sequence, or you can do it while you're recording a sequence. And I'm going to do my 1, 3, 5, 7. And at the same time, I'm going to be recording an accent or a rest to that step. First, we're going to start with accents. So I'm going to be recording. And now what you need to do when you want to record an accent or a rest, in this case, to that step, when you play the note, when you play it, you need to hold it. Never release it. If you release it, it's going to go to the next step. And you don't want that. So I'm going to be playing the first one. That's my first. So the second one, I want an accent on this one. So I'm going to be playing, I'm going to be holding, and notice that it's not going to the next one until I release the key. So on this one, I'm going to be pressing accent. And notice that the number 7 lights up. So the 7 means accent. I release it, and it's going to go to the next step. In this case, I'm just going to do 5, and now I'm going to do 7, and this 7 is going to be an accent. So I'm going to be playing, I'm going to be holding it, and I'm going to be doing accent again. And this 7 lights up again. So on this synthesizer, on this sequencer, whenever you add special things like the accent or rests, each action will be assigned to a number, and 7 means accent. So now, if I play it, notice that it's a little bit fast, and of course the effect is very mild, but notice, and let me go slower so we can really hear this. So we have an accent on the 2 and on the 4. Now, every time that the sequence goes to that step, it's telling you, dude, on the second one you have a 7, which is an accent, and on the 4 you have a 7, which is an accent. And if I go slower, we are going to be able to see this. Accent, accent. Right. So this is the way you know on which step what you have, because you might have other things like, for example, rests. Okay, so I'm going to go to a default sequence. You know the drill. I'm going to be playing this, and we have pretty much nothing. And I'm going to be doing the same thing, the 1, 3, 5, 7. And I don't have to tell you is a minor third and a minor 7, because I've been doing this, we've been doing this, since the beginning of this section. And I'm telling you this because the other day someone complained, because I'm not saying minor third or minor seventh. Oh my God, some people like to complain about everything. So I'm just telling you now. Okay, so we played, we have nothing, we are going to be recording it, but we are going to be doing rests. Now the rest works a little bit different than the other one, because when you do a rest, it will skip this step. So I'm going to be recording. I'm going to be doing 1, and I want to skip the number 2. Maybe no, maybe not. I'm going to do the 3rd, I'm going to do the 5, and now I want to skip the 7. So you never play it if you want to skip it. If you want to add a rest, you don't play it. You just go to right there, you press it, and it's going to take you to the next step. And notice that the number 4, now it's blank. And I'm going to do the same thing. 1, 3, 5. I want to skip it, so I'm going to be going to rest. And now the sequence, it's done. And there we go. We are skipping the 4 and we are skipping the 8. We are adding a rest on the 4 and the 8. Right. Now, of course, at the end of the day, you can record a combination of all of this. And once you learn all of this and you have the process on how you create a sequence, it's very fast. It's a very fast workflow. So let's say I want to record. I want to do a 1. I'm going to be doing an accent. This one, I'm going to be skipping it. Then I'm going to do a 5. This one is going to be an accent. And this one I'm going to be skipping. I'm going to be doing 1, 3. Then 5 is going to be an accent, and the next one I'm going to be skipping it. It doesn't matter. So I kind of fucked it up right there, but that's fine. So it's a very easy workflow once you kind of learn it. So, okay. So let's go back to default and talk about the next thing. Right, so of course you can do it live just like we did, but sometimes you're gonna mess it up just like I did on the last pattern. So does this mean that you need to record everything again? Of course no, you can go and edit your pattern. So I'm gonna be recording the same 1, 3, 5, 5, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna be doing 1, 3, 5, 7 in this case, 1, 3, 5, 7, and I'm gonna be doing some playing, right? So we have the same thing. Okay. So what I want to do, I want to add something. I want to add a rest, or maybe I want to add an accent, but I already recorded my sequence. So how can we do this? And I'm going to be doing it playing. You can of course do it not when you're playing. So how can I select a step so I can modify it? So what you need to do is you need to hold Shift. I'm going to go to Shift, hold it, and then you go to the step that you want to edit. Let's say I want to go to the number 2. So when you go there, notice that this one is blinking. So you're going to be kind of standing right there, and this is waiting for you to make a change. I'm going to be making it a rest. An accent. And notice that this one now has a number 7. So if I play and stop it, it kind of goes away. And you cannot really go there unless you go there. Now you're changing it. I'm going to go back to the number 2. So notice that nothing is playing, but I'm still going to the number 2. It's showing me that right there, I have an accent. And again, you can still do it like this with playing or when you're stopped. Okay. Of course, we are adding an accent. Let's do a little bit more. Let's say that right now we are going to be selecting the number 2. We are standing on the edit mode, on the number 2. I want to go and edit the number 5. How can I do to deselect this and select this one? The same way. I'm going to be going to 5, and now we are standing on the step number 5. And on this one, I'm going to be doing a rest. And there we go. We have a rest. Right. So how can I do to deselect this if it's selected? We are standing on edit mode. Go to Shift. I'm going to tap it, and now we are not on edit mode again. Now what happens if I want to change this key, right? We want to change whatever key to a different key. We want to play a different key. I'm going to be selecting it. We are on edit mode, and now you can press a different key, and it's going to change it. I play a low C on this one. And now when I get out, of course, it's just going to change whatever you want. And I'm going to be going maybe to this one, and I'm going to be pressing this one. Notice it's just kind of changing the key. Right, to get out, I'm going to be going out, and there you go. Now you can add accents, rests, and you can change whatever key you added on your sequence. Alright, so we're going to go and start from a default sequence. Right, we got the dumb sequence. So we need to talk about the gate length and the tie. So by default, every step we create will have a length. So the notes we store, right there, are going to be shorter or larger. And we can decide this, how this is going to go. So I'm going to be recording something, and I'm going to do a 1, 3, 5, 5. Something very simple. 1, 3, 5, 5. Minor third, if you're complaining. And I'm going to do the same. And if I play it, right, so that's it. Okay, so notice that they are not super short, but they are not super long. And by default, you can choose how to select this. And I'm going to do the same, but this time I'm going to be aware of the gate length. And you can do it on the go, or you can edit after you enter them. So I'm going to do rec, and I'm going to be doing 1. And now I'm going to be holding, and notice this one says gate length. And I'm going to be moving this. Notice it changes to red or maybe orange. Maybe you're going to see it at orange. So 1, it means super short. 7 is the longest gate. It's going to be a long note. And 8, it means tie. So I'm going to make everything super short so we can, of course, tell the difference. I'm going to go to the second one. I'm going to hold it. And I'm going to be doing it 1. I'm going to do a 5. It's going to be super short. And the last one, I'm going to make it long. Before 8 means tight. 7 is the longest. So now if I play this, there we go. So short, the shortest actually. And then the last one is the longest, which is 7th. Right, so that is how you, of course, use the gate length. Very simple. Right. So let me just stop. So what if you want to modify this and you don't like it? So we do the same thing we did before. We can do it while I'm playing or, or I'm stopped. I'm going to be doing shift and I'm going to go to that one and it's blinking. And I want to modify the length of this one and I'm going to make it 7, but it can be long. And there you go. So maybe I want to go to this one and maybe this one is too short. So I'm going to make it not that short with 3. And I'm going to go to shift and I'm going to get out of the edit mode. And there you go. That's your sequence with different gate lengths. Right. So then what you can do a tie. Now what the tie means is that the envelope will not re-trigger on that step. Right now, every time that we go to a step, the envelope is re-triggering. And we can easily hear this. It's just, re-triggering. That's fine. So, if I go to, let me just go and stop it. And I'm going to be doing the same thing, but I'm going to be kind of starting from default. I'm going to do a 1, 3, and then 5, 5, and 1, 3, 5, 5. I'm going to be playing it. So we can hear every single note on every single step. So if I make the 3 a tie or the second a tie, the envelope will not re-trigger for this one. And let's do it right now. I'm going to go to shift. I'm going to go and select the number 2. I want this to be a tie. I'm going to go all the way to number 8. Notice that the number 2 is just longer. And it's because the envelope is just kind of not re-triggering on that one. And that's a tie. Now, it depends on what you're doing or what you're playing. Sometimes when both steps, or maybe let's say, for example, we have right now on the step number 3 and 4, the note that we play right here is the same note. Whenever you do a tie right there, the note will the same note will last 2 steps. Now, let's kind of do it right now. I'm going to go to there, to the number 2. We're already on the number 2. I'm just going to make it a normal, something like 4, whatever, doesn't matter. And I'm going to go to the number 3. And remember that this one, we can make it a tie. So I'm going to go all the way to 8. There you go. So notice that the number 3, now it's longer. And we can do the same thing for this one because it's the same note. So I'm going to go to 7, and then we are recording a tie. So 7 and 8 last longer, 3 and 4 last longer. Now, when you work with this, with the gate length, sometimes it's just going to alter your tempo. Oh, right now I'm on edit mode. I need to get out of the edit mode. And at some point, you're going to need to adjust your tempo. Right. So that's how you add ties and you change the gate length. Okay, so I'm going to be going to a default one, and I'm going to be showing you how we can do a glide. Now, it's going to be a little bit tricky for me because the glide is on the other way of the synthesizer, and I don't have 2 cameras. This channel is not that big, so I don't have 2 cameras. So you're gonna have to trust me. Okay, so I'm going to do play. We have the default sequence. So what we want to do, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to be going to record. And what we need to do when we want to add a glide is that we need to go to shift and glide. That's pretty much it. So I'm going to be going and I'm going to need to do a big stretch right here. So I'm going to be adding the first one and I'm going to be, that's the C, then the 3. And on this one, I want a glide. All right. So I'm going to be doing 5 and I'm going to hold it. Now I'm going to be going to the glide control. Right now it's all the way down and I'm going to move it. And after you move it, after the 50%, notice that the number 5 can you see it right there? The number 5 kind of turns on the green light. Well, that means that glide, it's on for that step. In this case, the step number 3. If I go below the 50%, below 5, it's going to turn it off. So this is how you add glide to steps. If the glide is down below 50%, it's going to be off. And if you go above 50%, it's going to be on. So for that step, we do have a glide. And I'm going to go to the next one, which is the number 7. And on this one, I'm not going to do a glide. So I'm going to just do that. I'm going to start over. I'm going to go to a C. And on that one, I want a glide. So I'm going to be pressing. I'm holding. And now I'm going to go to the glide and turn it on. So it's above 50%. So now the number 5 is on. Now, Okay, so let me just complete the sequence. I'm going to be playing this. And notice that it sounds kind of weird, but it's showing you right there, if you go all the way down, that on the steps, we do have a glide. Notice that the number 5 lights on those steps. So we do have a glide enabled. So one thing that you need to be aware of, and I believe on this one, I could have messed it up with the gate length. So let me go to right here and check I have something normal. There we go. So let me go there. All right. Okay, so now we have glide enabled on some steps. Cool, but we are not getting that glide. Why? And it's because the global glide really matters. I'm going to go to the global glide, not for playing anything, not recording, and I'm going to do around 7 of glide. Notice that we can hear it now. So the global glide will decide how much glide you're going to be doing on these steps. And I know it's a little bit weird, you know, maybe recording the step, going to the glide, doing 50%, like, you know, this is 50%, going over the top, you know, go over 50% or 5, and then turning it on. And then you will need to adjust the glide time or the glide knob so you can hear the glide. It's just a little bit weird, but, you know, that's the way it works. Now, one thing that you need to kind of be aware that if you're doing glide, if your steps, the gate length is too short, you're not going to be able to hear the glide very good, because this step is just super short. And actually, I can prove this. I'm going to go right there. I'm going to make it super short. Yeah. And it's because this step has no time, it's super short, that it has no time to do the full gliding. Now, if I make it longer, we are going to be, we're going to go to edit this step number 3. I make it longer, like 7, we can really hear the glide there. Right. So that's how the glide works. It's pretty simple. All right, so we have another feature called Ratchet. And this one works with the glide as well. So it's just going to be a little bit weird for me. And I'm going to go and start over with the default patch, okay? And Ratchet, it means that you can play or you can trigger the envelope up to 2, 3, and 4 times on the same step. So let me just record something and just show you how this works. First, I'm going to be recording this 1, 3, 5, 7. And let me start over. The glide, it's on all the way. So let me just, there we go, all the way down. If I play something, now there's no glide. I'm going to start from the beginning, record something. Right, so we have so that's the sequence. Now, I'm going to be going to the number 2, and I'm going to be editing that step. So, to do the ratchet, you need to do shift and go to the glide, and you will actually see a representation of what you're doing right here. So I'm gonna tell you, I'm going to go to shift, hold it, and now I'm going to go to the glide. Now, when I move it, notice? So we get 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is when you move the glide while holding shift. So what this does, it will pretty much can play up to 4 times on the same step. If I release it, the step number 2 now is re-triggering the envelope 4 different times. That's Ratchet. What if I want to do 3? Well, the same thing. You go to shift, you go to the glide, and I go to a lower volume, you know, just a little bit less, and we are on 3. What if I want to go to 2? I go and do 2. Now, of course, we can go and edit other ones. I can go right here to the number 5, and on this one, we can have a ratchet of number 4, or 4, whatever. Now, whenever you do ratchet, right here, the gate length kind of matters. Notice it's a little bit different. This one is a little bit short. I'm going to be changing it to something longer, so it can be a little bit more obvious. So that's what you do with the ratchet. I'm going to go to the number 4, and I'm going to do 2 on that one, or maybe, yeah, I'm going to do 2. And just like this, with your accents, your rests, your ties, the ratchet, the glide, you just can create really cool sequences. Right. Right, so far we've been working on the keyboard mode. Now, what's gonna happen if we go to the step mode? So the step mode is pretty much the same. I'm gonna start with the default sequence. I'm gonna do some playing. What do you know? We get the same thing. Okay, that's fine. So in this case, instead of recording on the keyboard mode, I'm gonna go and change to the step mode. It's pretty much the same. Everything we just learned so far, it will apply to the step mode. So let's say I want to record something. Okay, so I'm going to be recording and I'm going to do 1 3 5 7 1 3 5 7, and this is going to record it. Now, if I play it, we get it. And notice that we are still in the step mode. Now, of course, the step mode differs from the keyboard mode. Remember, on the other one, we go reverse and forward. On this one, we'll offset. We kind of already talked about this at the beginning. But whenever you're on the step mode, you can just go right here. And what you're doing, pretty much, you're just doing rests. You're just skipping that one. Not skipping, actually, it's a rest. A skip is a different thing. So you can manually just actually add the steps on the fly without going to the rest. Now, what if you want to edit or add something, you know, of all the things we did, the accents, the ratchet? Well, this works the same way. You just go and shift and you select whatever step you want to edit, and it's gonna, of course, start blinking. And right here, you just can go alter maybe the gate. You can still do that. Maybe let's add an accent on that one and we'll still show you that it's the number 7. And if I go out of the edit mode on that one, it will, you know, show us that. And on this one, it's giving us the reference of 8, which is the rest. What if I want to go to this one and maybe do shift and do a ratchet? Yes, of course you can. Right. So you can still do the same thing, all the things that we've been doing. Right, pretty simple. So one more thing, I'm gonna go back and delete everything. One more thing I didn't mention, and it's actually works a little bit better right here, for my taste at least. I'm gonna be recording something. I'm gonna be doing the same thing. And I'm gonna be doing the same thing on maybe an octave lower. So now we have, you know, more pages. We have the page number 1 and the page number 2 because we have 16 steps. Now, sometimes you want to edit this. It's on the step mode or keyboard mode, and this is going to tour your between all the different pages because you might have four pages. When you go to page right here, it's going to take you, or kind of takes you, and on the manual, if you check the manual, it's called the lock mode. You're locked on the page number 2. And if I play it again, it's going to take it to 3 and the 4 because, you know, we have nothing right there. But, you know, if we go to 1, it's going to stay on 1, so we can do our edits on the number 2. And again, the same thing. We go to 3. I don't know. I'm going to be doing it longer. I'm going to go to 5. I'm going to make it shorter. I'm going to go to page number 1. Of course, I need to go out of the edit. I'm going to go to page number 1 and do my changes. Maybe I'm going to skip some steps. And if you want to get out of the page mode, you shift and page, and you're out of the page mode. You know, notice how simple it is to edit once you learn the process and learn all the things that you can do. It's very simple. Now, I'm going to go and show you some other things that we can do that are really useful. All right, so I'm going to go back to a default patch, and maybe I'm going to go and change to keyboard mode. I don't know. I kind of like it a little bit more. And I'm going to do some playing, and we have nothing. Of course, I'm going to do record, and the thing that we already know. And it's going to be just 8 steps. We kind of know this. So we have some kind of shortcuts right here. So if I go right there to reset, and I'm going to go and make it slower. When I go to reset, it's going to go back to step number 1. And this happens every time I press reset. Right, so that's one thing. Reset will take you to step number 1, especially, of course, when you're playing. Now, then you have a hold right here. What's going to happen when you do hold? So when I do hold, it's going to hold you on that step and keep playing that step. Now 1, 4, 7, and there you go. You can just hold the current playing step. Now, right now, the end of our sequence is the number 8. We kind of know this. Now, what happens if you want to change the end of your sequence? So you can do shift and notice that it says set end right there. And it's white, so it means that it's a shift function. So shift, arp, or set end, and you hold it, of course. And now if I, of course, touch the number 5, now the 5 is the end. Now, this doesn't mean that you lose everything that you have right here. You're just changing the end, which is, a little bit different. If I go to, again, set end, and I do 8, we are back to the end. The 8 is the end, the last step right now. Cool. Now, if I do shift and hold, it will mute the whole thing, right? And it's muting it. And if I release it, it's unmuting it. So very simple. If I, again, do it again, notice that the sequence keeps going, but we get nothing. And when I release it, we can hear it. Pretty simple. Now, when I do shift, oh, made a mistake right there. Let me just go, I just press one key, by mistake. Let me go back. I'm going to do shift, and I'm going to do play right here. Shift, and I'm going to do play. And I'm going to be playing again. And notice that it starts from the last step, so it's doing it in reverse. And if you think about this, we already have on the keyboard this function. Now, it could be useful on the step mode, but maybe not here. Right, so one more thing, and I'm not going to delete it. We are not going to use it, but I'm just going to delete and have the default sequence. We need to talk about pretty much the last thing that you have available. If you go right there, you could have already know what everything does. The shift, the page, the play, the rec, the patterns, the bank, the set end. But then you have an ARP. So we never talked about the ARP. You do have an ARP, and it's actually quite cool. So I'm going to go right there, and I'm just going to press the ARP. Of course, when you're working with ARP, you're just not going to work with the sequence. You have an ARP. So now if I make a chord, and I'm making just a minor chord, it's just going to do the ARP. Now I'm playing the, the chord. That's why it's doing it. As soon as I release it, of course, it will stop doing the ARP. And just like anything else, you just can adjust the speed right here. And if I do add notes, it's just going to do it. Right? Pretty simple. But I need to press the keys in order to have the ARP. What if I don't want this? I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to hold, and when I press it, and I release the keys, it's just holding and doing the ARP for us. Right, so if I unhold it, it's just going to go back to the default. Now I'm going to play an ARP. I'm going to hold it, and by doing shift, you can, of course, adjust the length of your, and this is the gate of your ARP. Notice that everything is super long. Now it's shorter and shorter. And of course, this also depends on what you have right here. If you have no sustain, you're not going to be able to hear that much. If you have more decay, it's going to be easier to spot, especially if you go to no decay. Alright? So that's another thing that you can do that it's kind of really cool. Another thing that you can do while you're doing the ARP, let me just do maybe a little bit more. So we have that. Now what you can do while you're playing, and if you play a key, if you press this button, which is the accent, remember? It's going to do an accent. Now this works live while you're doing, the ARP. It's kind of a useful feature. Maybe not that much, but it's kind of useful. Now, of course, we have something else right here. So you have 8 different modes for your ARP. So how can you change them? So what you can do, you need to go to shift when you are on ARP mode. And when you do shift, you are going to need to go to 1, either 2, either 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And you will have different modes of ARP. For now, I'm going to go to number 1. Now, we know that the number 1 is, let me go right here, is it 1, 2, 3, right? It's going to go up. That's pretty much it. Goes up. Now, the next one, if I go to 2, it's going to be the opposite. It's going to be from up and then down. That's a different mode. Now, the third one, and you have 8, which is a lot. The third one is going to be up and down. Pretty simple. Then you have the fourth one, and the fourth one is going to be random. Yep. Right. And it's a very simple kind of an ARP. You're not going to get something, super extra. Just fine. It's just fine for an ARP. Now, then the main star of the show is the sequencer, not the ARP in this case. So we are on the number 4. The number 4 is random. Now we have more. I'm going to go to the number 5. So the number 5, it's like the first one, but it's going to be playing it on 1 octave higher as well. So I'm going to be playing 1 octave. And then it's going to repeat the same thing 1 octave higher, which is something pretty standard for arpeggiators. Playing whatever I'm playing, and then playing it again 1 octave higher. So the 6 is going to be pretty much the same, but instead of going down or from whatever octave I am and then up, it's starting up 1 octave and then kind of going back in reverse to whatever I'm playing, to my octave. Simple, right? So what's going to happen with the number 7? Because we have 2 more. I'm going to be playing it. That is what's going on right now. So what it's doing is first playing my octave, the one I'm playing, and then it repeats the same thing 1 octave lower. So essentially it's doing 1 octave lower, right? The difference is where is it starting. Now if I go to the 8, it's pretty much like the 7, but notice it goes kind of backwards. But it's still, when it goes backwards, it's still going to 1 octave lower. Right, so that's pretty much the difference between all the different modes. It's a pretty simple ARP, it's just an ARP. Now again, the main start of the show, when you click the ARP, when you tap the ARP, it just go back to the sequencer mode. The main start of the show is the sequencer right here. Okay, so that's it. So hopefully you liked all of this. Remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to buy me a coffee, you can go to the links at the description. You have links for Patreon, you have PayPal, you have the YouTube. Thanks now. All right, so thanks for watching and see you on the next one.